I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the Call to Love experience. I'm Jasmine Bellamy, founder and spiritual director of Love 101 Ministries. This experience is an invitation, a call to step into spiritual community where together we explore the theology of love and practice what it means to live in its rhythm. Our focus is transformation, becoming more like love itself. Each episode, we lean into the practices that help us embody love as a way of life. So I invite you to slow down, light a candle, take up your journal, open your heart as we enter into this sacred space together. Thank you for being here. This season 4, and the finale of season 4, we've been getting deeply practical about living love. As we continue our focus on cultivating a personal rule of life and cultivating our own love practice, we open ourselves today to the contemplative path. I am so fortunate and blessed to be able to welcome into the studio this evening a dear, beloved sister in contemplation. Tia Norman is a contemplative teacher and guide, helping seekers of spirit and justice live more centered lives. She is the pastor of Awakenings, Inc., a spiritual community based in Houston, Texas. She is also the host of the Black Contemplative Prayer Summit, one of my favorite events every year, with attendees from all over the globe. And so I am delighted to invite my sister Tia back for the second time to the Call to Love experience. Welcome, Tia. It's so good to have you here.
Hi, Jasmine. I have lost your audio for some reason.
Oh, oh, all right. We're going to have to figure out how to fix that.
I don't know what happened.
All right. All right. We will get that fixed. Um, I'm hoping that as we move through this practice, that the audio will come back and you'll be able to hear me. Um, but I want to start by first centering us this evening in a definition of contemplation. And it's a definition that Dr. Barbara Holmes amplifies in her um, seminal text, Joy Unspeakable. And it's from Carmelite Ernest E. Larkin. And the quote is that she defines contemplation as knowledge by way of love, the fruit of a search, the experience of God's love poured forth in our hearts by the Holy Spirit, the experience of what God is doing in my own being in Christ. It is what is left over in my body, soul, and spirit as the aftermath of my meditation. Echoing Howard Thurman, Dr. Holmes invites us to consider the inward journey as a communal practice, which is why we gather here together. And so before we begin, let us arrive fully, gently together. Notice yourself in this moment. Notice your body. Release where you've been and soften into the sacred now. Wherever you are, I invite you to place your hand on your heart or simply follow the rise and fall of your breath. Rumi reminds us now is where love breathes. With each inhale and exhale, sense the breath of God moving through you. Listen for the quiet invitation beneath the noise, the call to stillness, to come home to your true self, the part of you that is whole, the part of you that is love. Let us listen from that place. Let us open to transformation, not through striving, but through surrender to the wisdom of the soul. Here, now, together, from this space of openness, let's welcome Tia into the conversation. Can you hear me now?
I can. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, hello,
Yes.
beloved. It's so good to see you.
Hello. It is an honor to be here, and I appreciate the invitation to visit with you in
Oh,
this way and with others who are
yes.
joining us.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. We were joking behind stage in the green room before we began with Reverend Candace, our sis who holds us down behind the scenes. That this is going to feel like a conversation um, that T and I have all the time, but we're just actually recording and going live this time and allowing people to experience it with us. And so um, it's such a gift to have you here. I'm so grateful for your yes. Um, I've been just so delighted by all the things that we've been able to do together, and
Mm,
so and still more to come.
mhm.
But I'm just really delighted that you would join us. And it's interesting because as I was thinking about it, right, we've been talking about rule of life. And I know sometimes we don't love that term, but thinking about what it is to cultivate a love practice. And for me, the love practice is the contemplative path. And so there was no one that I would rather close this season with than with you. And so thank you so much for your yes. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Um, I wanted to get us started. Um, just, one, I want to say to the community that you are welcome to join us in this conversation. If something resonates with you, you can drop it in the chat. Or you can just simply hold your reflections quietly. But both ways are welcome in this space. And whether that's during the live or whether that's in the playbacks, we'd be happy to be able to engage with you on social as you experience this time together. But I would love, Tia, um, just to hear a bit about your story to allow others to hear what first drew you to the contemplative path. Was there a particular moment when you realized there had to be another way of living?
Mhm. So there are maybe three instances that come to mind that I'll try to tie together.
Mhm.
I didn't know that what I had stumbled upon was called the contemplative path. What I was experiencing in my life was crises in a few areas. So, professionally, I was feeling very unfulfilled in the work that I was doing. And in many ways, was holding like what some at one time was a dream job for me.
Mhm.
And so it was very disorienting to have this feeling of like, I don't want to go into the office. Like it feels hard to breathe in this space.
Mhm.
So I was in this like professional, vocational crisis. And then that was also happening at the same time as several major shifts in relationships. So the relationship with my partner was coming to an end. There were things with my parents that I was navigating. And it just felt like a lot of my um, relationships that had felt secure were also beginning to disintegrate. And so um, essentially, there was a moment where on the way home one day, I pulled over on the side of the road and I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
And at that time, I felt guided to do a couple of things. And one of them was to start reading the Bible,
Mhm.
which didn't make a lot of sense to me because of my upbringing and my background, which was not really in a religious institution or in with a particular denomination. So intellectually, it didn't make a lot of sense. But what I did grow up knowing was that I could pray and that I could have a relationship with God. And so I trusted that and started reading the Bible, not knowing that what I was engaging in was Lectio Divina.
Mhm.
And so there was that moment. Those are like the vocational, the professional crisis. And then not too long after that, I ended up going on retreat. And there was a moment where a gentleman who I actually spoke to today, he just celebrated his 80th birthday. So
Aw.
deep bow of gratitude to Jack Willamy. He was at the retreat
Aw.
and he got up to speak, not as part of like the programming, but he got there to share a little bit of his relationship and experience with the retreat family, the family that owned the center. But what Jack did when he got in front of the podium was he didn't speak. He was silent. And it felt like he was silent forever. And in that moment, what I realized was how busy my own mind was, and that I was making up stories about why Jack wasn't speaking. Like, is he nervous? Did he forget what he was going to say? Is he okay? So I just had this very, um, like, deep experience, I guess, that in a way I was like aware of how busy my own mind was and that I was making up a story. And what he invited us to was a sit, is what he called it.
Mhm.
And throughout this invitation, he was very comfortable with silence. So he would say something and then he would say nothing. And it was the nothingness of what he was sharing
Mhm.
that I was like, I don't know what this man is talking about, but whatever it is, I'm going to show up for it. And so
Mm,
that was my first experience with sitting in silence and stillness and solitude intentionally in a
mhm,
way that felt welcoming and not,
mhm,
um, like punishment, which is
mhm,
something that,
mhm,
to be quiet is not always um, a positive invitation, but there was just something about that quiet. And I was like,
mhm,
okay, yes.
mhm,
So
mhm.
those were kind of my entry points into the
Yeah.
contemplative path.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a beautiful story. And thank you so much for sharing it. And there's a couple of things that come to mind as I think about it. Um, if I like pulled out a few bullets of what you just said. One, you talked about crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, I immediately think of Dr. B's book, Crisis Contemplation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, check. Then I love that you um, named Lexio Divina
Mm-hmm.
as, you didn't even realize that that's what you were doing, that there was a name for it at the time.
Right.
But and actually, I will say, if you follow Tia on social, she does such a beautiful job of showing us all the things that she's reading in this sacred reading, in this meditative way, chewing on the words, noticing how spirit is speaking to you. And we used to Lectio was a staple practice in the beginning of the Call to Love experience. And so I'm so glad that you named that. Um, but also, you mentioned two other important parts that we've also been amplifying here too, um, retreat. And so we actually met on retreat.
Yes.
And so Father Mark was with us earlier this season, and we talked about retreat as a spiritual practice. And so I
Mhm.
love that very rich experience you had with silence and solitude on retreat, which is just so powerful, so beautiful. But what I'm actually really like so blown away by is that you were so attuned to the storytelling that was happening while you were in that moment. And and what I sense from what you were saying is that we're almost so unaccustomed to the silence, like it's jarring and disorienting. And I would love to maybe just give you or invite you to expand on even just the silence part a little bit,
Mhm.
and maybe what that looks like in your daily life.
Yeah. As you're asking this, I'm reminded that we have, sayings like awkward silence. And so we're often taught that if there isn't noise, then it's weird. And it was something about that silence that actually allowed me to hear
Mm,
and
mhm,
to
mhm,
to
mhm,
be aware
mhm,
that there is this noise happening in my mind and to become curious about it, like, where is this coming from? Because the truth is, I've never met this man before. He hasn't said a single word, and yet I've heard so much. And so the silence felt like it was drawing me in is the only word that I can
mhm,
think of to describe the experience. And in the drawing in, there was almost like this spaciousness
mm,
where I could be curious and wonder, like, well, where is that coming from?
Mhm.
Where
Mhm.
is that
Mhm.
coming from? And then the way that he was so comfortable with, even in dialogue and conversation, with then taking a moment of silence, which is actually how most of our conversations start. Like if he still serves as my mentor to this day.
Mm.
Uh, and we'll hop on Zoom and he'll say, okay, let's be quiet. That's how our conversations start, with quiet. And that's just not something, that we are accustomed to,
Yeah.
um, when it comes to a way of conversation. But what I have learned from him is that beyond the conversation, there is this place of communion,
Mm.
and it's a place beyond words. My daughter and I went to a movie yesterday, and after the movie, we just hugged in the parking lot, and we didn't say a word to each other. And it's like, whatever it is in that
Mhm. Mhm.
is what I felt in that first awkward silence.
Mm. So
Mhm.
good. So good. Yeah, I was what was coming up for me when you mentioned that is that the words can come from the silence. Right? Right? It's like what what comes to us when we allow ourselves to sit in the silence,
Mhm.
in that spaciousness. And so I think there's something really beautiful about it. Yeah, I'm curious if there is, because again, when we were kind of talking behind stage, we were talking about how the misperceptions about contemplation or the contemplative path and um, the fear.
Mhm.
I'm just curious, like if there were something that you could offer as a this is how um, contemplation has been mislabeled. How might you correctly um, explain it to someone who doesn't quite know what it is?
Mhm. I feel like I answer this question different depending on what the day is,
Yes.
um, which, is maybe fitting. But
Hmm.
so if someone was new to the contemplative path, I would frame it in the context of experience
Hmm.
and relationship,
Hmm.
and think of it as like when like you and I, when we first met at retreat, we
Hmm.
introduced each other, we exchanged a few words, we sat in silence because we
Lots
were
of
on
silence.
retreat. Yes, because we were on retreat, but we became acquainted with each other.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And over time, what's happened is that acquaintance has moved to a friendship.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so the contemplative path for me as an experience has been about relationship that has always existed. I'm just becoming reacquainted with this relationship. It doesn't require me to perform. It doesn't require anything of me, actually, except for me to be. So I was thinking about this also in the context of like my life, and the contemplative path has been a deep source of healing, of remembering my wholeness, of being aware of my motivations, like
Hmm.
what is
Hmm.
motivating me to take
Hmm.
action. So getting back to the way that I kind of landed on this path and included the end of a relationship, And that can be a very scary space. You know, when you think you're going to be partnered with this person and you share a child together and that relationship is ending, it really touches on all of your desires that you can over identify with, your
Mhm.
sense of security, your sense of safety, your sense of being loved and esteemed. And so the contemplative path is like a gentle awareness of what's motivating us
Mhm.
and letting go of the over identification for those strong desires
Mhm.
and being attuned to how spirit would guide you and move you. Not necessarily like, you know, some people talk about like the language that's used as the false self. So it's not like, um, to me anyway, it's not a matter of eradicating the false self.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
being aware that that's a part of me that needs to be heard, needs to be held,
Mhm.
needs to know that it is loved beyond the conditions that exist
Mhm.
around me. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how I would answer that today. Ask me
Yes.
tomorrow, I'll tell you something else.
No, it's beautiful, and it's it's like everything you said. I'm like, I know to be true, right, from my own lived experience, which I think is the beautiful part. That we are completely different humans, but we have kind of landed on a similar thing, and there's something beautiful about that. And there's a couple of things that you mentioned. One, friendship has been such a theme of mine lately, and so the fact that you said it, I'm paying attention to it,
Hmm.
and so to me that's a part of the contemplative path, is noticing, noticing um, those themes that keep reoccurring, and what does that look like as a signpost on the path. But you also talked about love too, and that ability to understand that we are loved for being, for who we are, not that we earn the love based on what we do,
Hmm.
but we are loved purely because we be.
Yes. Yes.
And so what's been interesting for me, and so I'd love to hear your thought about this. I I realized in many ways, similarly, I didn't know what I was embarking on was some real path or whatever, right? Um, there were things, there were practices that were helping me get there. Um, my mind was super active, and so I started a meditation practice. And
Hmm.
so, and that was before I knew what centering prayer was. And then also I started a yoga practice, and so it was this embodied thing,
Hmm.
and this or connecting body and breath, and it was also the quality of the thoughts of my mind, and those came alongside this practice of love. And so those were like, that was what was triangulated for me. And so what I realized in many ways on my journey is that the practice of love is actually what brought me to the contemplative path.
Mm.
And so I'm curious, when you think about love and the contemplative path, how the path helps us to increase our capacity, or broaden our capacity, or widen our capacity for love. I mean, even in
Hmm.
that beautiful example you offered of you and your daughter in a parking lot, or you and your mentor, or even how our relationship has developed over time. I'm just curious to hear how the capacity of love for you is connected
Mm.
to the contemplative path.
Yeah. You know, I think as it relates to love, one of the gifts of this path has been becoming aware that I am always in an expansive place of choice.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And there's one memory that's coming up for me now. When I was very early on in learning about the contemplative path and had dedicated a daily practice of centering prayer, I remember being at work one day and something happened in a meeting that usually would have sent me over the edge. Like, there would have been a like hit all caps, but there would have been a per my last email, you know. Um, and the word that I think it was like I caught myself, and I was like, I don't have to respond that way. There are actually other options here. And so when you're talking about love,
Mm-hmm.
it has felt like this expansive recognition that I don't have to succumb to my habitual ways of
Mm-hmm.
showing up in the world or responding to people. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like at the core of love, there's always choice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
being aware of those choices has been such a gift. Now, there are still times where
Yes.
I hit that caps and I'm like, per my last email, like it's still, it's,
It's a daily
I'm,
practice.
it is a daily practice. It's a daily practice, but what a grace to either
Mm.
in the moment or in retrospect to look back and be like, oh, you know what? I actually, I probably would have approached this in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, it just, when you're talking about love, it feels like love includes choice, it includes being curious, it includes creativity, and all of these beautiful things that create new worlds.
Yeah.
So,
Amen. Amen. Yeah. And I want to also kind of pick up on a thread that you also mentioned um, when I think about friendship. What
mhm,
I have also found, um, to your point, right? We could be in a space together, largely silent, but somehow become connected because
mhm,
of our awareness. And, you know, I was thinking about the Howard Thurman centering down um, contemplative community that our beloveds lead every Monday. And I think about how my practice is to be in that community. And yes, there are some of us that like we have personal relationships now, but they're just people we don't know. But
mhm,
there's something about how we come to know each other in the sharing of our hearts, that we come to this place to practice centering prayer together, and then we come to sit and have this sacred reading in the wisdom of a Howard Thurman together, and we share the overflow of our heart together, and as that is happening, we're being woven together in this beautiful tapestry. And so I've had these moments where people I've just shared that space with, that all of a sudden we jump outside into real life like you and I have, and we start to have conversation. And there's actually also, it's so beautiful how close we already feel
mhm,
because we've shared this contemplative path together. Like there's something there's just more ease there. There's more, I think about my own framework when I think about the G of the Loving Leader framework as gift. that there's something that the contemplative path, the path of love, has allowed us to be able to see. And it just made me think of what you said, right? Like that there's this relationship that has always been, that
Mm-hmm.
we are now just becoming aware of. And it's also almost an invitation for us to be able to partake in it, you know. And so there's just something that I feel like the contemplative path allows us. Candace and I were actually talking about this backstage, right? To have the eyes to see it, to have the eyes to see it. And so there's just, I don't know, there's something beautiful about that. Um, I'm curious, when you think about contemplation in your ordinary life, and you obviously shared even how that came to life in your ordinary life. But I'm curious about what the practice of contemplation looks like for you in meetings, or while parenting,
Mm-hmm.
or commuting, or answering emails, since you just mentioned it. And because you are training for another marathon, I would even add running.
Yes.
So what does it look like? What does it look like to be a contemplative in your daily life?
Mm-hmm. So, when I was first introduced to centering prayer, the language around solitude, stillness, and silence was we come to silence so we can hear or listen. Solitude helps us be present, and we are still so that we become aware of how to move.
Mm,
And so the way that that shows up in my daily life is changing over time. But right
mhm,
now, the way that I would describe it is that these elements, solitude, stillness, and silence, actually are substances.
mm,
And what I'm discovering, whether it is, parenting, working, or running, is that these substances help to form almost like a deep well
mhm,
that I can draw from.
mhm,
And so, God willing, when I am aware of this well,
mhm,
it it is the source of my action.
mhm,
Um, what I say, what I that solitude doesn't necessarily mean that you're alone. There's a solitude that you carry with you, maybe thinking of it as like a place where you and the divine reside. And so that's the substance that I bring
mhm,
to my meetings.
mhm,
There's a silence where the divine and I commune, and that's the communication that I bring to my parenting.
mhm,
So to me, these things have become like a well, and running has real parenting has really helped to illuminate that, but running has helped to amplify it, because there's been times where if I have a just a short window and it's like, am I going to sit in silence or am
mhm,
I going to run? I've
mhm,
been inclined to run,
mhm,
but I have discovered that I'm carrying the stillness, the silence, the
mhm,
solitude, the
mhm,
presence with
mhm,
me as I
mhm,
move.
mhm, 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 mhm. I love that. I love that. And so I want to ask a similar question, but coming from a different angle. What does it look like to remain contemplative when life becomes chaotic?
Yeah. remembering that I'm human.
Mm, mhm,
Yeah,
mhm,
remembering that I'm human, that,
mhm,
in the context of the Gospels, that these temptations that I face to bow down
mhm,
and worship things,
mhm, mhm,
these temptations that I face uh, to receive esteem and affection, these temptations that I face, um, around safety and security. Like these are all things that have served me up until a point. And it comes to that identification. I don't have to over identify with
mhm,
these things in my day to
mhm,
day experiences. And so for me, a lot of the contemplative path is remembering that I'm human. You know,
mhm,
that
mhm,
this is the contemplative path is not a path of perfection.
mhm,
It's a path of the human experience and the
mhm.
divine that dwells within each of us.
That's right.
And so, yeah, that just makes me feel a bit freer
Yeah, yeah,
as
yeah.
I go about.
And I love what you just said, because what you didn't say is that the contemplative path is navel gazing
Oh,
and focused on yourself.
no, no.
Right, because I think that's also one of the misconceptions, like we withdraw from the world and we don't want to have anything to do with the world.
Hmm.
um but in actuality, in the silence, we can become so clear of who we are
Hmm.
and why we were put on the planet, and we can silence the noise around us so that we can be so attuned to that and be
Right.
moved and propelled into the world from that.
Yeah.
And so I think there's just so much beauty, and I just love that way that you showed us how our movements and our actions all kind of come out of the practice as well. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, 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 yeah. um Yeah, it's I think also to your point about more spaciousness, if I think again back to the capacity to love, that it's actually in the chaos, um, when the fear arises, when the anxiety is trying to make its way in, that these practices, um, rem- that there's these moments to remember, to be able to draw from the
Hmm.
well, to draw from the presence of being with the divine. And so it's a very practical thing that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I appreciate that. I would love to just also give you space to share a bit about the practices that help you return when you've maybe drifted away from yourself in a moment or two.
Oh, the welcoming practice is a big
Mm-hmm.
one,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which gets,
I was like, can you explain a little bit about the welcoming practice?
yes, which I think is uh, helps me to also embrace my humanity and also helps me stay aware of my body. And
Mm-hmm.
so the welcoming practice would be a practice, I mean, to engage in at any point, but in particularly when one bumps up against like a very strong internal, well, or external emotion,
Mm-hmm.
like a
Mm-hmm.
heavy emotional experience. And I don't know about you, but a lot of what was kind of, you know, taught to me, taught or caught one way or the other was our emotions are something to stay away from.
Mm-hmm.
Like wipe your eyes, get yourself together, that
Mhm.
that having the felt sensation of an emotion is a sign of weakness, when really it's like, what else if you're sad and something sad happened, that's the most normal thing to feel.
Just
Anyway,
data.
so yeah. So so what the welcoming practice entails is essentially focusing, feeling, and sinking into the thoughts, commentary, sensations that are like within that emotion itself. And then seeing if you can actually become aware of how that feels in your body.
Mhm.
And instead of pushing the
Mhm.
what's been labeled as a negative emotion away, you let yourself have the felt experience of it. And
Mhm.
it's a counterintuitive practice that actually helps the emotion to dissipate quicker than
Mhm.
if we kept resisting it and pushing up against it. So, in moments where I have, the awareness that I'm having like a strong initial emotional reaction to something, I internally kind of go through that welcoming practice
Mhm.
as a way to acknowledge it and then kind of sink beneath the emotions and
Mhm.
try my best to stay in that place of choice, which sometimes means saying, like, I need a moment to be with this. Can we continue this
Mhm.
conversation at another time? Or,
Mhm.
I need a moment to just be with this experience, and
Mhm.
can we pick this up later? But
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's the one that comes to mind. I mean, I
Mhm.
think in some way, shape, or form, when it comes to what would be like traditional contemplative practices, so to speak, I mean, at some point during the day, I'm reading something and noticing what is sticking out to me and
Mhm.
being with that. At some point in the day, I'm going to be in silent stillness and solitude. At the end of the day, I'm probably going to reflect back, right? This is the examine. How did I
Mhm.
move through this day?
Mhm.
Um, the welcoming prayer is that
Mhm.
practice on the go. So I feel like I kind of move through, um, you know, the the toolkit that's available to me.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
the breath
Yeah.
prayer,
Yes.
breathing in and all of those things. So they just over time have become things that live within me, they've always lived within me. It's just a matter of knowing this.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking about just like my own personal experience recently, where I was just, wrestling, with, thoughts, um, trying to make sense of things, right? Trying to make meaning of things. And there was a moment where I could become aware, like I could name what was coming up in me. Um, but it was also, and it was also this moment for me to be able to say to myself, how can you care for yourself right now? What practices that can be the thing that soothes you right now.
Mm,
And so for me it was, you know what, my heart is aching right now, and I know what I need to do is sit on my porch with the sun and my dog and my journal and Thurman and my coffee,
mm,
and place that mug against my chest
mm,
to feel the warmth. And so, even things like that, just being so attentive to my own self, knowing what feels good to me,
mhm,
being a good steward of my own self, um, has been a part of the practice for me too. Just identifying the things that help me feel beloved, right? Who that make me feel cared for,
Mhm.
that allow me to take care of myself when I'm feeling tender.
Mhm.
And so I think that the practices, which is, really what we were doing all season, was to explore all these different ways that we have access to the divine in our presence, in our lived experience. And so I appreciate you sharing how your day kind of flows through all of that. I am also curious. Um, I'm curious about perhaps how I think one of the things about this journey, right? There's no destination. And sometimes people think when we're doing work like this, like we've arrived somewhere, you know, and
Mhm.
it's a journey. It's a journey. And so I'm curious, perhaps, what still surprises you
Oh my
about the
gosh.
contemplative path?
So much.
Mhm,
There's so much. And as I've been like at this point kind of thinking about what we've talked a lot about the mind, and like I shared, I was aware of how busy my mind was,
mhm, mhm,
and
mhm,
there's been some conversation about um really leaning into like logic and reason.
mhm,
And so I think what I am often surprised by and learning to trust more
mhm,
is my intuition,
mhm,
that there are some things that I know that don't fit within the realms of data on a spreadsheet, or pr- presenting a case of why this makes sense. Like, some things just make sense because I feel that they make sense. And so I am often surprised by what happens when I trust what I
mm,
feel.
mm, 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 mm. Yeah, yeah, that's powerful. Yeah,
I'm often surprised when I trust what I feel.
yeah, I love that. I love that. And when I think about that, similarly for me, it's it's when I can trust what is coming up and moving. Like I talk about the actually doing the thing. So however I'm stirred to be able to hear
Mhm.
in that inner sanctuary, and then in my outer life do, like to
Mhm.
move into the thing, to your point. It's like to trust that small still voice
Mhm.
has actually spoken.
Yeah.
Right. And then literally saying, okay, and I'm gonna put the incarnated me into that. And so I think that has been really surprising for me too. When you see,
Mhm.
and just the little signs, the little markers are around along the way. Like I'm seeing our beloved Andrea's comments in the chat, and I think about, and also Candace too, how we walk the Camino. And one of the things
Mm.
that we learn about the Camino is following signs. And so when I am when I am trusting, when I see a sign and I follow that sign, I'm so surprised where it takes me.
Yeah.
And so thank you for that. Those are beautiful surprises. Those are beautiful surprises. So I know we're starting to come to the end, and I would love to just invite you to perhaps share if there was one more thing that we've not discussed that you wanted to share with someone who may be new to the contemplative path, whether it's a book that you read or a teacher that made things make sense for you, um, or yeah, anything that you would offer, a podcast,
Mhm.
whatever. I would love whatever you would offer to our community.
Yeah. Mm. I think just trust
Mm-hmm.
is the word that's like a flashing sign right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Trust, and I would put it in the context of kind of how we started, which I was in this space of, how I found out about this world of contemplation and contemplative
Mm-hmm.
practices
Mm-hmm.
came from a place of like, I feel like something is shifting and changing. I I don't feel like I can breathe, you know, like trust that you can move toward that which makes you feel like you can breathe a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
And that may be a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I was doing something totally different than what I'm doing now. And
Mm-hmm.
I think this trust is coming from there was nothing that I was orchestrating behind the scenes. Like I I was trusting this guidance,
Mm-hmm.
and thankfully, my teachers and I have found each other, and
Mm-hmm.
it's been beyond what I could ask, think, or imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And so trusting the nudges, the mystery of it all,
Mm-hmm.
that whatever podcast is meant to find you is going to find you. The book that is meant to find you, you'll meet it. Like, just trust that these things that your heart is calling these things forward, and trust that they will meet you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, I have one last question.
Okay.
When you imagine the person you are still becoming, how is the contemplative path shaping that becoming?
Oh, yeah. So I don't know. And I think that's the beauty of it. Like I don't know. I couldn't have orchestrated the I never would have seen, that I would be sitting here having conversations like this with beautiful
Mm-hmm.
people like you. And
Mm-hmm.
so my prayer is that it continues, to um, be whatever it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mentioned that I was talking to my mentor who just turned 80 earlier today, and he said, Tia, it's an interesting thing, which he's very much still a seeker, I guess is what I would
Mm-hmm.
say. So
Mm-hmm.
at 80 years old, he said, it's interesting because the body atrophies and the soul keeps expanding.
Woo!
And
Woo!
so, like, let me be open to whatever this expansion is is how I would respond to that. And the contemplative path uh, seems to be for me a way of being open to that and receptive to it. And so I hope I continue to go that way of expansion. If,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. so rich. Yeah, I literally, as I said it, Andrea typed into the chat. Ooh, that's rich. It is. It is. That's powerful. Thank you for that. Thank you, and blessings for your mentor and passing that along to us today. Such a
Yes.
rich gift. That's so good. Um, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your yes. Thank you for sharing your journey, your heart, your transparency. You are such a beautiful gift to me, and I'm so grateful for that. I want to share a couple of things in terms of um, sometimes I feel like people hear messages like this and they feel stirred, and they want to be guided to more, because it can be hidden like a mystery. And so, one, I want to share that if you enjoyed this conversation with Tia, we actually will be having another conversation in August. As many of you know, I recently became the executive director of Still Point, the Center for Christian Spirituality.
Yes, you
And
did. Yes, you did.
yes, and we are offering monthly contemplative gatherings. And our next quarter, this is July through September of 2026, will be all about transformation. And so Tia will be joining us in August for our contemplative gathering. We're going to be focusing specifically on Father Thomas Keating, centering prayer, programs for happiness, and divine therapy. And so, please, if you are interested in joining us, we'll share how you can find out more about that through Still Point. Also, we talked about retreat again today, and so I do want to invite you to the Heart and Soul of Loving Leadership, which is my next retreat, September 22nd through the 24th of 2026 at Trinity Retreat Center in West Cornwall, Connecticut. And so, if you are looking for a place where you can find some of that silence that Tia talked about, and that stillness, and have those moments of solitude, and also be doing that as a communal practice together, and being transformed in a space like that, we are welcome to have you. And I would just say that I'll also have in the show notes Awakenings, Tia's community on
Yeah.
Sunday. You can join and be a part of that beloved contemplative community. Actually, I'll be there, Truth Communicating in July 19th and the 26th.
Mm-hmm.
So you can join me in Awakenings. It's such a beautiful community. I enjoy it every time I'm there. And so I'll have those links in the show notes as well. Beloved, would you just close us in a blessing or prayer, whatever comes to your heart? I would appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for
Mm,
having me. And congratulations on the
thank you.
conclusion of a season.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
very good.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I would offer the words that we would remain open,
Mm,
that we would remember our humanity,
mm,
that we are blessed to live in a space of choice,
mm,
that perfection is not the goal, this is a path, that there is a deep love that resides within each of us, that the conditions which we find ourselves in do not define who we are, that love, only love, in the words of James Finley, has the authority
mm,
to name who we are. So may we move in our name.
mm, mm, mm. Amen.
Amen.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
beloved.
Thank you.
Oh, what a way to end season 4. We'll be off for the summer. I've been a little delayed on some podcast drops, so they'll be coming if you wait for us on podcast, so you can revisit these again. But until next time, be well, be love. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.